Over 2,000 reports of anti-Semitism were made across Australia in 2024. That's a 316% increase on the previous year. Synagogues have been firebombed, communities and schools have been vandalised, and police say they interrupted an apparent attempted terror attack in Sydney targeting Jewish communities. Australia is not the only place where anti-Jewish attacks are on the rise. So what is anti-Semitism and why does there seem to be so much of it lately? Associate Professor Matteo Vigani is an expert in hate crimes and terrorism at Deakin University, and he describes anti-Semitism like this.
It means attacks against Jews because they're Jews. This is what it means. It's really attacking Jews because of what they are. So, of course, the scale of anti-Semitism, and when I think about, people burning synagogues or burning houses of Jewish members or prominent Jewish members, or damaging properties like cars and houses in Jewish neighborhoods. I mean, that is something that is not common in Australia. Okay, we haven't seen much of that. And I guess this is the reason why we are talking about it, because it's really concerning. I mean, the scale and the severity of the incident.
Anti-Semitism is sometimes referred to as the longest hatred. It's a type of prejudice that has been seen in a variety of ways over thousands of years. As long as Jewish people have existed in history, there have been instances of world leaders, including the pharaohs of Egypt, the kings of Persia, and the emperors of Rome, who have sought to enslave or expel the Jewish people from their lands based on a variety of economic, theological, racial, or social prejudices. Globally, hatred has particularly been stirred up in the aftermath of October 7, 2023, when terror group Hamas attacked Israel, killing about 1,200 people and taking more than 250 hostages. Hamas initiated the attack from the Gaza Strip, targeting an open-air music festival.
So every time there is a conflict in the Middle East involving Israel and Gaza or Palestinians, it is quite normal to see increases in hate crimes targeting Jews globally. So this is not new. However, of course, what is new is the scale of the conflict. The duration of the conflict is kind of unprecedented. So we are witnessing something new in a way. So we are expecting an increase in anti-Semitic attacks, but it's of a new quality, a new severity.
In the aftermath of October 7, Israel retaliated, and since that day, cities have been flattened and populations have been displaced. Opponents of Israel have pointed to the numerous reports of Palestinians starving, suffering, and ultimately dying in the wake of Israel's retaliation, saying the response was an overreaction. While there may have been an escalation to the violence since October 2023, in most times those who harbour prejudices towards any cultures are mostly just opportunistic. Their hatred is for hatred's sake, rather than being deeply rooted in any ideological beliefs.
People who engage in criminal behavior, like burning a synagogue, are not driven by media headlines, okay? They're all driven by the context. They are already people who have a criminal mindset. The excuse or the justification to act because something is happening, some people play in the ambiguity. And, they actually want to sound ambiguous because they are really trying to say, I don't like Jews, but they hide this by saying, well, it's Israel. So it's really hard in the gray area to be able to draw a clear line. I think that hate is very contextual and haters are very opportunistic. So today is anti-Semitism, yesterday it was Islamophobia, tomorrow it can be something else. So you really need a comprehensive approach and a federal hate crime legislation, which doesn't exist in Australia. It exists in Canada, in the UK, in the US, and this is what we need, absolutely.
It's important to note, genuine criticism of the Israeli government's actions and policies is not the same as anti-Semitism. And criticism of the Israeli government does not need to mean hostility towards all Jews. Criticism becomes anti-Semitism when it is assumed that all Jews, including those living outside the direct conflict, Australian Jews for example, are somehow responsible for the actions in Gaza today or throughout history.
Whether someone is attacking Jews, all Jews, because of who they are. And it's the same thing as someone attacking all Muslims because of who they are, or and anyone, really, versus really criticizing the actions of a government, which is, whether people like it or not, democratically elected, like the government in the US, the government we have, the government in any democratic country. So it's being voted by people. It's like someone hating all Americans or going in a American party and smashing the cars outside because they don't like Trump. I mean, is that a legitimate or meaningful criticism of Trump's policies, or is that something else? Well, I think it's something else.
Even without taking a side in the debate about who's at fault for the ongoing conflict surrounding Gaza, it's plain to see there has been an escalation of violence all over the world. And when that happens, it's the innocent that are so often caught in the crossfires. Lem Zakaria is a Palestinian living in Australia. This was Lem's response to the targeted anti-Jewish arson and graffiti attack on a Sydney childcare centre in January 2025.
You can be Palestinian and you can be for this cause, and you can grow up and know that your grandparents have suffered with the Nakba in 1948, but still see that Jewish people have immense trauma. But haven't we learned that violence and bigotry will only breed more violence and bigotry? There's a difference between Jewish people and Zionist ideology. There's a difference between the inhabitants of a place and what their government is doing.